I was born in number 55 Great O'Brien Street, and I now live in 77.
I was born in Blackpool.
I was born in Blackpool in a street called Spring Lane.
I was born, bred and reared in this house.
I've lived in Spring Lane in Blackpool since I was 3 years old.
We are fifth generation here now. It goes right back. When my family moved here to Blackpool first, we had a pub in Blackpool, you know.
I was born in Brockersby Street.
I'm living in the Blackpool area since 1977.
All my family came from the village in Millfield above, you know, my grandmother, her mother before, and my own mother.
I grew up in Blackpool. My family before me grew up here.
Well, my connection is I used to own the pub that was situated behind us here at the Bowlers Rest.
My mother was born just behind us up here in Water Lane, and my father came from Welch's Lane in Blackpool.
Well, I came to Blackpool from the Middle Parish in 1962.
I'm on the committee of the youth club. I have been involved with the youth club since it started in '74.
I saw a small shop for sale here in Blackpool called The Pantry, which traditionally used to sell milk and cakes, and I thought it might be a good investment.
Well, I was born in Blackpool, reared in Blackpool. I'm in charge of the youth club here in Blackpool.
I married a girl in the area who had moved into the area a long time before me. I worked in the area then for 23 years as a publican.
I'm in Blackpool all my life practically. I wasn't born in Blackpool, but I was born a Blackpool mother and a Dillon's Cross father.
My connection to Blackpool is I was born and reared in this house.
I live in this area, that was about 7 years ago.
I was born in the village, which is Millfield Cottages.
I was born in 22 Madden's Building, and when I got married I went into 26 because my mother kept me near her.
I came here to Blackpool in 1959 as an 11-year-old boy from Ballincollig.
We living in Blackpool area about over 1 year and 1 month.
Everyone belongs to me from Blackpool. Every breeds me, if you like.
I live in Seminary Villas, off Seminary Road, which a lot of the older people and not so old people would have known as Water Lane.
The earliest memories as a human being was inside in a pram outside Kathleen Stack's shop in Dublin Street, and there was a butcher's shop, Barry's, next door, and Lauretta Barry, God love her, she's dead since. She actually peeled an orange and gave me a piece, and that was a memory for some reason stored when I was still in the pram, probably a year and a half, and Nottingham for years after that. Forgot all school, thank God, and everything until I started work. So maybe that's the way the human mind, you keep the things you like and you get rid of the things that aren't so good.
Blackpool was totally different to what it is now. It was a busy, vibrant village. There was a lot of laneways in there. There was Welch's Lane, Green Lane.
Quarry Lane, there was School Lane, there was Water Lane, there was Broad Lane, Narrow Lane.
Slattery's Lane.
Prosperous Place, Wellens Lane.
Hatton's Alley. That's it. But up Thomas Hill Street, it was all lanes as well.
They were all lanes and they were all living in small houses. And like I say, we were all equal.
For one, you had the brewery, Murphy's Brewery, you had the distillery, so you had dray horses. Now, don't go back to the year dot, but you had up to the 70s certainly, dray horses going up and down.
It was a lot quieter that time. I remember when I was young that the local cattlemen used to drive their sheep and cattle down the street to the butchers. You know, we'd have to get off the street. There was a stampede every Sunday maybe.
But you could play football here. No cars. My 2 or 3 cars would pass in the day, and that was it.
Very few motor cars on the street, and there was a ball play up and down the street. That's the reason that those railings are up against the window.
We used to be able to play on the street when I was a young fella as well, you know, there was a lot less traffic around the place. And every Sunday evening, there used to be scores. A lot of them used to start from here, from the grotto, and play up the hill because, as I said, there was no traffic on the road at that time, you know, you would hardly see a car a lot of the time, you know.
We used to go to Fitz's Boring, there was a pond out there, and that's where we spent probably most of our childhood days out there, you know.
we get a bat of jam bread off the mother, and Jesus, we'd been missing half the day, you know, and there'd be no worries that time where you were, no dangers or anything. And
I had a picky, I had a hoop, the hoop with the stick, and I had a top.
The amazing thing about it is none of the neighbours ever said, oh, you can't play ball, you're annoying us, or, you know, they just allowed us to have all that freedom.
I love climbing the wall up there and put the money down, then our tinny tops on the line, from down again the trim and up, go up there and collect the. It was great, I love climbing walls. I was a good climber and a good runner.
Blackpool School. Well, at that time we had a lot of different teachers and they all had a lot of different sticks. One fella had a drumstick, another fella had a leather, another fella had a bamboo stick. They had all their own things for this corporal punishment. I tell you, it was tough times.
I went to Blackpool National School. I think I was the only one in my buildings went they all. My sister went to the North Presentation Convent. But I can tell you there was better education in Blackpool National School.
yeah, we had nothing really, you know, nobody had nothing that time, you know. Jesus, sure. You know, if you got the price of the Lido that time below, which was only about threepence or something, that maybe tuppence at the time, yeah, you might get it once a month and you'll be in heaven with it, you know what I'm saying, you know?
You can look back and nostalgically and say it was a great time, but it was a tough enough time. And but I suppose people were generally more kind of watching out for neighbours in it. I don't know, is that the case anymore nowadays, you know?
A bit in the 50s, I suppose, we were a bit isolated. I mean, people on Farnreid, they were very well off. They had bats and everything. We had toilets all right down the end of the yard, which in the bad weather you get kind of drenched going down. And the old lock was a bit of twine on a nail, you know, and you could read the toilet paper, grand stuff.
When I first came with my wife and family, Blackpool was in a state of dereliction. There was a lot of buildings in poor shape. There was a lot of unemployment in the area. The infrastructure was poor because you had a main road travelling here right in front of my shop. So it was going through to Galway or Limerick. If you wanted to drive to Galway or Limerick, you had to come through Blackpool.
When the bypass came in, everything changed. Everything changed. The Clayton Love started the shopping centre out in the Poultry. Poultry was derelict, there was nothing out there.
You know, some think by inviting you in for a cup of tea and a scone, they consider that they've consulted with you. But real consultation is taking on board people's concerns and actually, in some cases, actually changing the plans.
Some developers, we've written to them and said, great development, we love your plans and best of luck with it. Others, we weren't maybe a little dubious about it. We said, are you going a little over the top here? Will you sit down and meet with us and we'll discuss it?
There was a model of the new development plan exhibited in the community centre, and at that time I was involved with the Blackpool Historical Society, and we submitted a proposal as to what we thought would be a good plan for the village, but that wasn't taken on board.
They demolished all the lanes and they moved all the people back up to Mount Farm Place and Farm Clary Place, which was great because we all moved up there, we all knew each other, and it was marvellous. But then the main street, Thomas Davis Street and all the surrounding areas, turned into a derelict area. In fact, it was more like a third world country than anything else, Blackpool.
Knocking the lanes and building first the flats. They took the character out of Blackpool. I remember nearly 20 years ago, a meeting here in the centre, and somebody said to me, we want to bring back the village atmosphere to Blackpool. And I told them, when they took the lanes out of Blackpool, they took the heart out of Blackpool, because Blackpool was the people.
But the priest in Blackpool saying, when this happens, he says, the people in Blackpool are going to regret it for the rest of their lives. And I'm talking about the Blackpool flats.
There was 1, 2, 3, there was 6 blocks of flats. There was Glenties, Amal, Antrim, Avoca. There was another 2 and I just can't think of them at the time, you know.
You put people in there who weren't used to living in these places and they couldn't cope.
And that was the start of Duracht then, and then they became dilapidated, and then the council then rehoused them and knocked them and rebuilt again.
They were fine buildings now, in fairness, but like there was no fire escapes or anything.
Obviously they were designed by a man, not by a woman. They never allowed for lift shafts or anything like that, so women that would have been doing shopping when young babies, they had to carry, if they were on the top floor, I mean, just 60 steps to the top with your baby and pram and your mistress, so you know, they're probably good that they're gone in that sense.
It was bad planning because people didn't have anywhere to hang their clothes.
The tradition over the years of people from the areas that when their daughter or son would marry, they'd like them to live close to them, and I think the flats in Blackpool served that purpose for a while until it became a little bit dilapidated and people weren't taking pride in where they lived.
There was a stupid sign up there that no ball playing, like how can you stop young fellas not playing ball? You know, simple things like that, like, you know.
It was good when they were demolished.
We're glad they're gone, and I'd say many more people are glad they're gone. But it didn't have to come to that if the corporation had foresight in doing things with them.
Whereas to me, being a fellow with his first communion money, I would think you should do up what you have instead of not being too fast, knocking everything down. It seems to be cheaper nowadays to knock something down and rebuild it again.
Kind of like a multicultural thing now, you know. I suppose we've gained kind of like modernised, you know.
You have Nigerians, you have Romanians, and you have Bulgarians. You have lots of them like that. It's just a change in the times.
With the influx of other Europeans into the area, I suppose it has changed an awful lot in that respect, but the changes, I think, need to come from the residents of Blackpool rather than these people adapting to us.
We learn to live with each other. When we understand each other, that's when I can say it will be gone. But everywhere there's racism, so I don't see it as a problem. It depends on the individual. Some see you as a threat, some see you as a human being, which I take it normal.
We have a lot of young different kids now in the club. They're coloured. Yeah, you have black kids and you have Asian, and you can all get angry. No problem at all.
But the thing about them, they're not inclined to talk to us. They're passing the door there every day now, and I'd salute them, but they wouldn't look at you.
They're afraid, girl. They're afraid.
They're not inclined to talk to us at all.
Strangers coming in, you still think you're going to be friendly and you might say hello or something like that, and next thing they just pass it by, you know, and you feel hurt. You know, it's a whole new, different outlook here altogether now in Blackpool.
You know what they say, blah, blah, blah. I say yes when I should say no, you know. But different altogether. Even the people themselves, blow-ins we call them.
Sheila Manley down the road is, she was telling us, I can tell you her age, 70, and she still considers herself a blow-in, you know. How long it will take the people from other countries. She's from Timoleague, so they come from kind of further afield.
I came over the viaduct, the train used to come over the viaduct, and I came up on the train and I came out here, over across the road, they were my cousins. And I was only after coming out of school, like, and there was nothing below in Timoleague at all for anybody. So they were delighted to get a little job here for me, and they were my cousins and they'd look after me and things like that. So after a while over in the shop, then Johnny was coming for a double wood boil, like, you know. And we got acquainted.
Tell about the day you went to town, you couldn't come home.
The first day I went into town, I couldn't find my way home.
As a foreigner, I can tell you that there are a lot of things changing. You know, people are feeling relaxed. Before they were scared about foreigners, but now I think they're a little bit relaxing, seeing that there's no danger, you know, living with foreigners.
Well, there is a little bit the thing of two communities almost living side by side, right? So I would welcome the idea of a discussion in the area about how those two communities can be brought together somewhat more.
Like me, I have many friends in the work, yeah, and we meetings sometime. We go to the pub. It's not too often, but we meet together. Yeah?
It's changed, you know, a lot of people are afraid of change, but generally speaking, and I know this from a fact now, that the people in there are good people, and I think they're going to add again to Blackpool and keep the spirit of the village alive, because, you know, if you were just an extension of the shopping centre or commercial building, there are people who only walk there day and it's gone at night.
And you must remember our checkered history in terms of the Irish communities when they left and they sought refuge when they needed to in Australia and America, etc. We now see it in reverse.
I think so. This young people no understand immigration, because these young people, parents or grandpa or grandma, immigration to any country in Europe, yeah, to America, everywhere, and these young people don't understand that, yeah, what's happened before, and he think this life will be like that, yeah, just like that, live day of day.
In the future, maybe the situation will be in Ireland as well, like in Polish now, so they will have to go outside the island for work, for money.
There's a couple of things in the village that are missing to make it a village. They tried to take our post office from us. That didn't work out, because we got a few people together and we worked hard to keep it in the village.
The post office facilities for the year 2007 were based in the centre shop in the heart of the village. And the owner of the shop decided that for whatever reasons he would choose not to continue with the facilities in that place. So the ball was bounced back to An Post, and An Post found a new postmaster, and the early indications were that the postmaster wanted to move the post office out past the grotto,
nearer to the shopping centre, on an island site that would be on the junction of Dublin Hill and the Mallow Road, which would have been a very, very bad site, because most of the older people living now in Blackpool would live maybe in Madden's buildings.
Technically would be keeping the facilities in Blackpool, but for the people who need the most, the elderly people, who tend to be concentrated down the other end of the village, and there was a strong feeling that this would be a blow for the future of the village.
When I heard that the post office was closing, I was shocked, I will be honest with you, because again, there is a need for a post office there in Blackpool, right in the heart of Blackpool, by Blackpool Bridge. Yeah? Because, I mean, back in our time, Blackpool, the post office was famous because that's where everybody congregated. They'd be all hanging around there, and then especially Sunday mornings, they'd be over there at by the post office waiting for the Glenbear to give them the nod to come in. They'd open the door and they'd all shoot across into on Sunday mornings and for the few jars then again on Sunday morning.
A post office is more than just a place where you buy a stamp or buy a postal order. It is a place where the elderly population, the older population, can come and meet and catch up with local news and local gossip, and who's come visiting from abroad, and what daughter is getting married next, or engagement in the family. It's what keeps social cohesion together. It's their link with the outside world.
You know, it would be a disaster if it ever really fully closed down. There was talk of going to the shopping centre to take the heart out of Blackpool, so I don't think it would be a good thing.
If we lose the post office, we've lost the banks to the village. What happens next? So we needed to make a stand on this, and people felt strongly and they were prepared to work hard. What kind of work did people do?
I believe there was a petition signed and sent to the post office.
We fought it and we fought it.
We got a few people together and we worked hard to keep it in the village.
I'm glad to report that the postmaster, partially as a result of that strength of community feeling, decided that it wasn't too late to change his mind.
The old people are thrilled because it's in the centre now. We're surrounded with St. Francis Gardens, a lot of old people there, the shared housing, and you have Madden's buildings. So a lot of old people living around the post office now, that's just very handy for them.
You know, at the moment the post office is still in the heart of the village, but in the end of the day that's a commercial decision, but I hope that it would remain within the centre of Blackpool.
The little post office we have below that is working fine again. You know, I don't see anything wrong with it.
The post office now has been relocated in its original site. It had moved across the road to Centra but originally it had been at Blackpool Bridge, and it's back now in its original location, and that is good.
We are very concerned then about the future of Blackpool Village, you know.
I think there are huge opportunities for the village itself to develop. You know, if you look at places like Douglas where they have the East Village and things like that, I think, you know what, there's an opportunity for some more restaurants and socialising places for young people and for newcomers and for the traditional people who've lived in the area.
There's not much more development can go on here, you know, unless they start buying up houses and knocking them down and building, making more commercial. And if that happens, then Blackpool is lost as Blackpool. It'll be just another commercial centre, you know what I mean? And like Douglas, there's very few people actually live in Douglas.
My one reservation, and it needs restating, that the village, as stated in the city development plan, going way back to the 80s and even the 90s, that must be looked at again, revisited, and saying how can we help Blackpool develop as a village, and how can we sustain the commitment to protecting the fabric of Blackpool as a community and as a village.
All you can hope for is that those who make the decisions kind of make the right decisions.
I would like to see the housing that's here being properly looked after. That's the only thing. We have over here on the left-hand side in Broad Lane, we have 28 houses between condominiums and houses idle for the last 3 years, and there are people looking for places to live in, and the City Council are involved with that over there, and they've done nothing for it, which is a pity really.
What my one wish would be is maybe that definitely from this part of Blackpool down, they definitely should do something with it. Because once you drive down the road here from the new complex, or even drive up over the bridge here and you're hitting this, it's like going into Beirut. And that's a shame, because Blackpool do not deserve this.
I hope it will be a lot better than it is now. Because Blackpool is after getting very shabby looking. When you go up Blackpool, it's very lonely to look at all the shops gone. I know there's a great supermarket there and all that now, and it's fine for us, but at the meantime, it was, I suppose, the way things are going. They're bad, like.
Well, you have to get used to, you have to adapt to change, otherwise, you know, you're left behind. And that's one thing the people in Blackpool don't want to have happen to them, is to be left behind.
The development that's going to happen down on Watercross Road, where there's still vacant sites, and the old Lida cinema that's behind us here, that when those developments do take place, that maybe that they would be under the affordable housing scheme, whereby local people, or indeed Cork people, or anybody, can buy to live, not buy to rent.
I would hope, as I said, that families would move in and make it a living area again. And the commercial side of it is important, but it shouldn't kind of take over the whole place. It shouldn't be a place that people just drive in there and then drive away.
For the people that are coming in and renting properties in Blackpool, that they would take the same pride in the place that we have. And in that way we can all live in harmony, and that we'd be happier if, you know, if they kept the place clean. And you know, there's some lovely people coming into apartments and all that, but there are the few that are just leaving rubbish and stuff on the paths and their bins out and all that.
I would like to see it being built up, you know, and make us proud of it again as we were.
Well, I would love to see, you know, more families coming back in.
What we've lost a lot of green area. You know, I live now in Dublin Hill, and when I come out on Dublin Hill and I look down, the only green area I can actually see from the top of Dublin Hill is this actual green area where I'm standing now.
The old Blackpool and the new Blackpool. The new Blackpool is up, you know, the shopping centre, which is great. I've absolutely no objection to that at all. But like, I think we're being forgotten about a little bit down here, and I think that's very, very sad.
You could put luxury apartments there now. You could put swimming pools, you could put what you like there. You'll never get back the Blackpool we had, because it was the people.
The one thing now that has changed dramatically, I think, and I think maybe for the worst, is gated communities. You know, whereas before we had open communities, now in Blackpool, just in one little street, we have 3 gated communities. We have, say, Prosperous Place, which is one of the oldest surviving laneways in Blackpool. That now has been gated. So I think gated communities don't say very good things about the community you're living in.
People have lost the kind of social contact that was there long ago. Anyone had a telly, there was at least kind of 4 other families coming in to look at the Virginian, you know, or any of those things.
Who would have envisaged 10 years back what Blackpool would have looked like now? So 10 years on, probably it will be much, much more improved. Certainly a different community in that they'll be younger, more vibrant, and hopefully tied in with the older people, and hopefully it'll go from strength to strength.
When I look around, really, you know, it's a place that I don't think is going to change an awful lot, because it's people that come in there are moulded by it, and there's a certain kind of character of Blackpool. It's north side obviously, but it's Blackpool. I mean, if people ask you where you're from, north side or south side, people absolutely do, but people from the Blackpool don't say they're from the north side. I'm from Blackpool, because they're proud of it.
I think 50 years' time, you will have a vibrant community. You will have the people that came I suppose, in the late 90s and in the early, after the millennium, that came here from other countries, and they will have blended in and brought their own, I suppose, influences on Blackpool. And I see that, again, I'm positive about that. I think that will be very positive for Blackpool in terms of its future.